Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. It's good? Perfect. Okay. Okay. Khairan inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman mazidan. Amma ba'd. In regards to our brothers who are new to Islam, our brothers who, inshallah, I don't think it's a necessity or need to continue to call them reverts. Our brothers, he's new to Islam. That's definitely, in my humble opinion, best. Inshallah ta'ala. So the brothers who are new to Islam, new to the faith, new to the brotherhood, they shall receive precedence with regards to asking questions or concerns or something that they may want to share with us. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So anyone who wishes to go first can do so if they like, inshallah.
One question, yeah. If Prophet, peace be upon him, left one deed, then how come there are differences of opinions in the Ummah?
If he left one deed,
Yeah, one
Akmal
difference.
al-Din.
if he perfected the religion.
Yeah, and then
Khayr.
why is the differences in
Khairan, inshallah. So the first question says, if the Prophet of Islam perfected the religion, why are there differences of opinion? A very important question, and inshallah a simple answer. And that is, just because people differ over a thing, or fight over a thing, or argue over a thing, it doesn't prove that that thing is factual or not. It doesn't mean that a thing is perfect or isn't perfect just because there are others who have a problem with accepting it or embracing it or practicing it or having a difference in engaging it, such as light. If someone is having a problem with their eyesight, if someone is impaired visually, that doesn't deny the existence of light. If someone says this light is very bright, and another says it's dull, and a third says it's in the middle, that doesn't have anything to do with the accurate emitting of the light, how powerful, how bright, how sharp it is, or it isn't. Rather, we have 3 sets of eyes, 6 eyeballs, which are different and they vary. Rather, one human being with the left eye, it can be different from the what? The right eye. Okay, so this is just a basic, tangible example of how just because people differ on a thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that the thing itself is different. Okay, so Islam, without a question, is perfect. It's perfect. The Quran and the Sunnah is perfect. The understanding of men, the embracing of men, the study of men is that which is flawed and imperfect. So people, scholars, they differ in their levels of intelligence. Some scholars are smarter than others, naturally. Nothing to do with studying, just naturally born smarter. Some scholars research more. Some scholars are more dedicated and devoted. Some scholars are wittier than others. That. And oftentimes, that's the first part of the answer, or the first step, or the first way. Second way of answering the question is oftentimes it's not actually differences of opinion. It's not differences of opinion, but the people interpret it poorly to think that it's an actual difference of opinion. But oftentimes it's a means of diversity. It's a means of diversity. So therefore, if I had a friend who came from the country of Kuwait, all right, he came from Kuwait, and he came from Kuwait to the United States, and he wanted to go to the supermarket, and he wanted some khubz. He says, "Ma huwa khubzukum?" or "Ma huwa al-khubz indakum?" What is your khubz? What is your bread? And we were in the aisle, and the first thing that was next to me, I said, some sourdough. I said, "Hadha al-khubz indana." Ah, tayyib. And then the second day he went to the supermarket with another brother, and he says, "What is khubz?" And the brother, he picked up some wheat bread, and he went to another supermarket or another aisle or another store, and there was a biscuit, and it was white bread, and it was raisin bread, and it was this type of bread and that type of bread. So all of those different views, somebody thinks that the Americans are confused of the concept of bread. But in actuality, these are just different selections and diverse picks of khubz. But it's all actually khubz. So many people, they read the statements of the earlier scholars concerning the Quran, and they say 8 views: Mujahid, Qatada, Tahak, Ikrima, Ibn Abbas, Ibn Mas'ud, Fulan. ولو كان من عند الله لوجدوا ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا. If it was from other than Allah, then they would have found what? A great deal of difference. So this proves that the Quran isn't true. But in actuality, Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Abbas, Ikrim al-Tahaq, they never differed. But they just gave an interpretation of the verse which is included in its meaning. Like the brother from Kuwait, sourdough, white bread, wheat bread, raisin bread. These are all different selections of bread. So in actuality, it's not actual differences of opinion. It's just choosing to interpret it with a selection. So another very important point is that oftentimes there's not really khilaf or ikhtilaf, but it's nothing more than diversity. Are we understand this? Thirdly is the concept in al-Islam is that there is differences of opinion or difference of opinion. But oftentimes the difference of opinion could be a means of mercy. A means of mercy. And sometimes the difference of opinion isn't a means of mercy. And there's only one of the two that's right. One of the three views is right. How do you determine and discern unless you yourself arm yourself with the necessary tools, the knowledge? So there are many things in the worldly life that we don't understand. Countless things. Me, myself, I'm not a sound engineer. And to this day, I cannot understand and grasp the concept of how my voice is snatched out the air and recorded onto a phone. Or before the phone, a CD or a tape. How does my voice go to a piece of tape? If you ever think about this, how does that make sense? Can you see the body of my voice? Is my voice tangible? How does my voice float out of my mouth into the air and then it's on a what? A tape. And it's preserved for 10, 20, 30, 40 years and you play my voice. How does that work? But I haven't studied the science of sound. I didn't go to school for that. I don't know the basics or the detailed principles of that science. So it's not for me to say if it was real, then kada kada kada, because I haven't learned myself. And the same applies to Islam, the Quran, the Hadith, and the fiqh. There is a way of understanding and getting into the differences of opinion. But if you have no knowledge of it, or very small basic level, then of course it's going to be something which is problematic. So these are some of the answers to prove that there lies no doubt the Quran is from Allah. Islam is the truth. It's perfect. Human beings are not perfect. Human beings explain and they give different versions of their interpretation. And oftentimes some humans are right and others are wrong. But it's going to be relative to the person who understands the different. So that's what I would say in brief. And Allah knows best.
How do you stay away from sin?
How do you stay away from sin? How do you stay away from sin? Did you come to the khutbah earlier? Were you at the Jummah? Our Jummah, the one that I did.
Say that again?
Did you come to Jummah services?
Not here, no. I went to Greenland.
Okay, you went to Greenland. Tayyib. Khairan, inshallah. Tayyib. So, with that being said, how do you stay away from sin? There are many different ways. One of the easiest ways of staying away from sin is being around people that try to stay away from sin. Like it minds. Birds of a feather flock together. Inna tuyura ala ashkariha taqa, as they say. Birds of a feather flock together. So you'll never see a falcon and a pigeon sitting on one stoop or one perch ever. Owls and seagulls don't get along at all. You won't find that. And that's because they're two different species. The way they think, the way they fly, the way they eat is like night and day. So they have so many things in which they can't see eye to eye on. They don't mix and they don't mingle. But falcons with other falcons, owls with other owls perhaps, eagles with other eagles perhaps, different birds of prey, that's a different story. So the concept of if you yourself are trying to stay away from sin, you have to surround yourself by people who are thinking the same thing that you're thinking. And people who want exactly what you want and people who don't want exactly what you don't want. So this is one of the easiest ways of avoiding sin. Is surrounding yourself by people who share the same likeness. People that don't want to do the sins as well. And that's because you may be weak when you're by yourself. You may be a victim when you're by yourself. But 3 of us, 4 of us, someone is going to say, hey, put that down. Hey, leave that alone. Leave her alone. Let's not go there. Someone is going to say it. 2 people may both fall. 3, 4, 5, it's going to be too hard to do it. So one of the easiest ways of doing the right thing and avoiding the bad thing is good company. Secondly is self-discipline, self-control. Learning how to have sabr upon that which you know is bad for you. It's bad for you to make zina. It's bad for your soul. It's bad for your body. It's bad for the woman that you're making zina with. Nothing about zina is good. That's yaqeen. But you may not have the patience because your soul is calling you the temptation. So it takes time. It's going to hurt at first. It's going to burn at first. The temptation is strong. And the second time is going to be hard. The third time. But the fourth time, you'll find it easier. And you'll find yourself being more comfortable, being more at rest, feeling that I didn't give in to my temptation. And I actually control myself instead of myself controlling me. All right? Number 3 is more knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the easier it is to avoid sin because you know the ugliness of it. You know the punishment of it. And you know what shaitan really wants from you. And you know that in the case the shaitani kana da'ifan. Allah says the plot of shaitan is weak. Unfortunately, this verse to many of us may not even apply. It may not apply to many of us. That the plot of the devil is weak. To many of us, the plot of the devil may be formidable, strong. But those of us who have the knowledge, and those who know the nature of shaitan and iblis, and those who know Allah, and those who know the things that iblis, shaitan, the devil has done, he can see through the trick. And he can look right through and says, that's weak, that's feeble. Him promising me money, him promising me this, him promising me that. And the same applies to the worldly life. The same applies to the worldly life. Someone that was involved in crime, heavily involved in crime. They suffered because of that crime. They lost a loved one, or they themselves were wounded or injured, or they went to jail or whatever, and then they realized the reality of crime doesn't pay. It looks good, it sounds good, when you're actually through the motions, you realize that it's a fallacy. It's not reality. But someone who's never experienced it, or someone who's only in the beginning, or someone who's watching it and listening to it and hearing a song about it, he thinks that it's cool and it's fun. But that's not the person that the bullet ripped through his body, and he never ever will be able to walk for the rest of his life. It's not the one who went to jail and his wife left him and his children grew up. He came home and they don't want to be involved with him. He realized that I destroyed my life and the life of my family because of crime. And that's because the person who's been to jail, or who's been wounded, or who's lost his loved one, they killed my little brother. They were after me. They thought I was in the house and they shot my little brother. My little brother was innocent. He never did anything to anybody. My little tiny brother, they shot him 12 times looking for me. He knows the reality of it because he has knowledge and experience. And the same applies to sin. The more knowledge you have of Allah, the more knowledge you have of shaitan, and the more knowledge you have of the reality of the world, it's easier, inshallah ta'ala, to avoid sin. And there are other reasons as well. There are other reasons as well. Those are 3. Wallahu alam.
Can you explain a bit about ahadith musalsal bil awwaliyya?
Ahadith musalsal bil awwaliyya. طيب. Are we done with the new shahada questions?
Basically, I've reverted recently to Islam, and I've still got family members here that follow Hinduism.
Okay.
And recently got a car, and my mom went to the Monday and she got a little note out that she prayed to, and then she put it in the car.
Okay.
And whenever I jump in the car, I don't want it there because obviously
Okay.
it's not from my religion. Innit?
Okay.
And what it is, I don't know what to do about it because if I take it off, my mom puts it back on.
Clear.
And then I don't
Where
want to put
where
it
is it
back
at on the car?
It's on the steering wheel.
On the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Okay. And your mother bought the car for you?
Nah, but brother.
Your brother bought the
He's
car for
still
you.
Yeah, he's still a Hindu.
Tight. Khairan inshallah. And what type of relationship do you have with your mother?
Perfect. I mean, she loves the fact that I became Muslim. And
Okay.
It's good, yeah, but I don't know, it's for my brothers, they want it on, and my mom as well.
Clear.
So whenever I jump in the car, I want to take it off, but
Clear.
they want it back on.
Clear. With regards to someone who accepted Islam and their family has not accepted Islam, they remain upon Hinduism, and there's some type of prayer or supplication or invocation on the steering wheel of the car. I don't want it on, I want it off, but my mother puts it back, my brothers want it on. What should I do? I think that is going to be based off of the amount of respect that they have for you. We are blood, we're family members. They're happy that I became a Muslim. We have differences between Hinduism and Islam. But if you respect me and my religion, I have said nothing negative against Hinduism. I've said nothing negative against the religion of my forefathers, but I'm a Muslim. I choose to be a Muslim. And I just don't want this on my steering wheel. Or, that's one way. Another way is, I'll keep it on my steering wheel, but I'm going to bring you a picture of the Shahadatain. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Rasulullah. And I want you to put it hanging in your Hindu temple. We have a deal or not? What are they going to say? Of course they're going to say what? No. Without necessarily disrespecting Islam or Muslims, but this is a Hindu temple. Okay? And this is my car, and I'm a Muslim. I haven't asked you too much, more than you've asked what? Me. So if I was you, I would avoid arguing and fighting with them, and use the wisdom of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. When he smashed the idols, he said the big one did it. If the big one can talk, that you worship and call upon, then I'm free. And if I'm guilty of smashing the idols, then you're guilty of stupidity. That's what Ibrahim basically told them. He lied. He destroyed the idols. He put the axe upon the biggest and the largest of the idols. He says the big one, he did it. Ask the idol if the idol can speak. If the idol can't talk, how can you worship it? So if I smash the idols and I'm guilty of that and lying, you're guilty of being fools for worshiping something that is man-made, that contains a spirit, etc. The concept of polytheism or paganism. So therefore, ask them to respect your space. And you don't have to get into no debate with them about Hinduism being a bad way, or you don't have to get into no debate. It's my car. Please respect my space. I appreciate the fact that you want to pray for me. I honestly do. I appreciate that. But it's my car. I'm a Muslim, and I don't want to have that on my steering wheel. If they can't respect that, no problem. Then make them an ultimatum. I'll put this on my steering wheel, but you have to recite this. You have to come to Jumu'ah with me. I'm going to impose my religious ways on you because we pray all day long as Muslims. They at best will say, no, thank you. Thank you for making prayer. Please don't force us to do this. So how can you force me to do it? That's unfair, right? So you have to use wisdom. You have to use wisdom. You have to be cunning with your mind with regards to being in a tight situation. You're a new Muslim. You're outnumbered. You're going to be accused of being extreme or disrespectful. So you have to what? Play the game with them, but make sure that you're what? Putting them in checkmate, and not the what? Not the opposite. Huh? Wallahu alam. That's my advice. And Allah knows best. Any other question? No problem.
We as Muslims believe that there is only one God, yeah, and He's the creator of the seven heavens and the earth. Why is it that He made other religions as well, including the Islam on the side?
Why he made the other religions?
As well.
Okay, clear.
Yeah.
The question with regards to why other religions as well, or people with other religions as well. Allah Azza wa Jal, He clearly mentions, and He clearly explains to us that He uses some of us as a means of test and examination for others. We made وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ فِتْنَةً أَتَصْبِرُونَ. Allah says, we have made some of you a test and a trial for others. Will you be patient? وَكَانَ رَبُّكَ? Huh? And your Lord is what? Basira. أليس ذلك كذلك? We have made you fitna for each other. So Allah Azza wa Jalla, He made a Muslim a fitna for a non-Muslim, a test. And He made the non-Muslim a trial for the Muslim. Will you be patient upon the trial that we have made? And if everyone could see the truth, and if everyone could accept the truth, and if everyone submitted to the truth, and everyone saw Allah, there will be no distinction for a believer. There will be no distinction for what? For a believer. So there has to be a test. So many people, they say that if the Quran was true and if Islam was true, why couldn't God just make things simple and easy for us? Okay, let's say that's not a bad question, despite the fact that that question has been posed and answered where? In the Quran. You can't make that argument if it's in the what? In the Quran. If it wasn't mentioned in the Quran, then perhaps you can make that argument. That's unfair for God to allow someone to die on the cross and it's not really Christ. But the answer to that is clearly mentioned where? In the Quran. Everyone understand this? So the fact of the matter is that there's a test. Everyone is not going to be behind the truth. Everyone is not going to be righteous. Everyone is not going to do the right thing. And that is made to test us, to see who's going to follow the truth, who's going to use his mind, or who is going to submit to the trend of the people. I'm around Christians, so let me be a Christian. Even though I feel in my heart and I know that Christianity doesn't make any sense. That's a test. And those who pass the test will be rewarded. And those who fail the test, they'll be what? They'll be punished. Like a pop quiz. If the teacher told everyone at the quizzes tomorrow, the people who study and the people who didn't study, they would study at the last minute. They would crash just to get an A. Everyone comes to the class. She says, pull out your notebooks. Question number 1. What is this? Question number 1. When was such and such? Question number 2. And if everyone knew that the test was coming, it wouldn't be an actual what? Test. And Allah knows best. We done with all the questions for the new shahadas? Any more? It's not a problem. Any more questions, Akhi? Okay. طيب, the question,
حديث
clear.
مسلسل بالأولية.
Jazakallah khairan. Question al-musalsal bil. طيب. When we talk about al-musalsal bil awwaliyah, the concept of you going to a sheikh and you reading hadiths to him, and you want that which is called an ijaza, a certificate of license, an ijaza. You want to be able to quote these hadiths in this book from the sheikh and pass it on to other people. So the very first hadith that the sheikh will give you from his sheikh to the Prophet would oftentimes be a hadith that is special, a hadith that has a specific type of taste to it, such as Inna ar-Rahimun yarhamuhum ar-Rahman.
حديث الرحمة.
Irhamu man fil ardi yarhamkum man fis sama. Okay? So the merciful people are shown mercy by Allah, the most merciful. Be merciful to those who are upon the earth, and the one who is above the heavens will be merciful to you. This is one example of some hadiths that will be the very first hadith that the scholar would give as an ijaza, with the purpose of teaching and showing the student that the asl of ilm is rahmah. Ilm rahimakallah. That mercy is supposed to be connected with knowledge, not harshness and mean, vile character, but sweetness and kindness. That's the asl. But that's not a condition. There are other hadiths that scholars give first as ijaza. Okay, is that hadith authentic? Question number one. Who was the first person to start doing that practice and why? It's not mandatory, but many scholars, they have done it for many years. La bats. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But there are other hadiths as well, let alone the system of the ijaza. What is the purpose of having an ijaza in 2019? And what is the real ijaza? The ijaza to have a certificate that you set in a class and they were reading hadiths, 1,000 hadiths in 1 hour, super fast. Or you studied with a scholar for a year and he taught you and evaluated you and says, go back and teach your people. Okay? So someone who's an actual student of knowledge, who has studied and learnt, and he also wants the certificate and he wants the ijaza, khair ala khair. But that's not the same as someone who barely studied and he walks around saying, I have ijaza, I have ijaza, I have ijaza, I have ijaza, I have ijaza. And he shows off and he boasts and he flaunts it. And it's something which is very, very, very common. And many people, they don't care about knowledge and the character, but they only care about the ijaza. To show off and to say what the next man doesn't have. So you have to be mindful of that. Okay? Oftentimes students, they'll lie for ijaza. They'll hide. They'll go. They'll find a sheikh to give ijaza. They won't tell no one about it. And it's sort of they warned from that. Or you may get an ijaza and the isnad is full of weak narrators. Or the hadith itself may be weak. So, yani, it depends. That's in brief. Wallahu alam. تفضل أخي. جزاك الله خير. بارك الله فيك أخي. شكرا. You gotta go? Oh man, some biscuits.
Yeah, you call it biscuits.
Allahu
And
Akbar.
I asked you when you was in Alcatraz.
Allahu Akbar. MashaAllah. Can't get better than this, huh? The culture of the disciple.
I asked you if you had like Kashmiri pink tea. You said, I think
Allahu
I never
Akbar.
had it.
That's right. I remember. We went about royal chai, Kashmiri pink chai. Allahu Akbar.
Yes.
Allahu Akbar.
So,
MashaAllah.
and don't forget the give my salams, inshallah.
Nafis. Oh man, I don't know, man.
Okay.
Nafis, he may not get anything, man. He didn't come.
Jazakumullah khair.
Wallah, you better think. Shukran, akhi.
Mad love.
May Allah bless you. Same here, man. I love always.
I'll
Allah.
catch you online.
Yeah, for sure. You take care. Thank you for the gift.
Yeah.
Jazakallah khairan. Barakallah fikum.
Another question in regards to hadith. What's the difference between حدثنا وحدثني وأخبرنا أخبرني وقال? How do we understand these?
Clear. Question says, what is the difference between haddathana and haddathani, akhbarana and akhbarani? What are the differences? How do we differentiate? And so on and so forth. There are two ways of looking at it. Two ways. Or before we get into the specific simple answer, is that the scholars of hadith, like any other field of expertise, they have different schools. They have different schools of thought. Some of them looked after fluidity, and others looked after technical precision, rigid mechanical precision. So as an example, Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, as an example, relatively speaking, he was closer to the madhab of fluidity, simplicity. حدثنا أخبرنا شيء واحد. It's nothing too stringent, too rigid. If we have the Sahifa of Hammam ibn Munabbih, Sahifa as-Sahiha, that he reports from Abu Huraira, right? So, how many hadiths did he report from Abu Huraira? In the Sahifa that's in print today is hundreds of hadiths. And Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, he narrates from his mashayikh that go back to Abdul Razak, that go back to Ma'mar, to the end of that silsila, to the end of that isnad. I don't have to quote every single hadith from the nuskha, nor do I say وَذَكَرَ أَحَدِيث. It doesn't matter. Imam Muslim, different story. Imam An-Nasai, different story. This Imam, hadathana means one thing, akhbarana means something else. Rigid precision. 200 hadiths in this sahifa, I have to say, وَذَكَرَ مِنَّا أَحَدِيث. So the ulama, they had different types of movement. Some went with the smooth, easy movement, and others went for the precision and the rigid, detailed way of moving. So some ulama, they made no difference between hadathana and akhbarana. Same thing. If I gave you a narration, you would say hadathana, told us. And if it was me and you would say hadathani. But some scholars, they use it interchangeably. They use it what? Interchangeably, okay? As the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam informed to the companions about the Dajjal. The hadith says that they would say to the Dajjal, the Messenger of Allah told us about you. And that's why Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala, sometimes he would narrate from certain people, certain things, people that he didn't necessarily meet, because it was narrated to a fellow Muslim. Sometimes it was smooth, fluid movement, and sometimes there was what? Rigid precision. Wallahu alam.
So what's the difference between حدثنا and أخبرنا?
Hadathana and akhbarana could be what the Sheikh says from his memory. And akhbarana could be what the Sheikh says from his book. He's reading from his book. Are we understanding this? Or someone else is reading the Sheikh's book to the people. We have the different types of turuq at-tahammul, the different ways of getting a hadith. Hearing it from the Sheikh, reading to the Sheikh reading to you, hearing it from the Sheikh, reading to the Sheikh reading to you. وهكذا. Clear? إياكم. Fadal. How do you know if your sins are forgiven? The responsibility of the servant is that when he makes a sin, is to repent. Go, repent, do it the right way, be sincere, be honest, and do it the way that Allah told you to do it. That's your responsibility. What is forgiven, isn't forgiven, is something which is only known by Allah. However, we believe that Allah is truthful, and He never lies, and Allah never wrongs anyone. And if He promises to forgive a servant who makes repentance and who acts and does the righteous deeds, he will be forgiven. We believe in that promise. But to know specifically which sins are there, which sins are other than there, that's known by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's not our responsibility. My job to give the khutbah is not, did you like my khutbah? How was it? Did it change your life? What do you think about it? That's not my job. My job is to prepare, is to give it my all, do my best, and that's it. Do the people like it? Did it change their life or not? That's not my job. My job as the khatib is to give the khutbah. Give a quality khutbah. That's it. Do the people like it or not? That's not my job. And the same applies to being a servant of God. Your job is, if you do wrong, make repentance. Ask for forgiveness. Do it the right way. And inshallah ta'ala, you're going to get that forgiveness. Allah will not break His promise. But the general concept that we have as Muslims is that we do not speak about God in a manner which is unbefitting. We do not speak about God in a manner which is unbefitting, in which we say what God is doing and what He did, and we don't have specific knowledge about that. Okay? And perhaps one of the reasons behind the servant being, or it's decreed for him to make certain sins, and do you know, has Allah forgiven me or not, is for you to continue to what? Work hard. Work hard. So if I gave the khutbah, the Friday speech, and as I came from the minbar and came and made the salah, no one shook my hand. No one said, Sheikh, Jazakallah khairan, gave me a hug. MashaAllah, I meet you in person. I watch your videos online. Everyone just let me walk by him. What's going to be on my mind? Maybe my khutbah wasn't what? Maybe they didn't like it. Maybe they don't like me. Maybe it wasn't that good. So maybe next week I do what? Try harder. That's not the same as after I do the khutbah, everyone stands in line to give me a hug and a kiss. It was wonderful, it was amazing, it was fantastic. That could possibly do what? Go to my head and it may become a bit lazy. You understand? So there's wisdom in these things. And Allah knows best. Fadl.
You know, sometimes you find in books, maybe in tafsir or history, you mentioned directions to like Israeli and stuff like that. What does a person do with that? Does he, for example, they mentioned the name of, for example, Iblis before, he was cast out and stuff like that. Does a person keep that? Can he relay that?
Clear. With regards to finding riwayat al-Isra'iliyah, the Israelite narrations, the narrations of the Jews and the Christians before us, in the books of tafsir, was Ibn Kathir or this one or that one, can you benefit from it? Do you keep it? Do you remove it? Etc. It's like being a connoisseur of something. A connoisseur of tea. I love tea. I've studied tea. I've traveled to get tea. The leaf has to be like this. What's the name of it? What country did it come from? Who's the one who processed the tea? Etc. The average tea person says green tea. It's good. Give me some milk. Give me some sugar. Give me more sugar than tea. The average tea person doesn't really what? Care about those things too much. But for the one who's a connoisseur, that's a faida alima. Jiddan. When you're breaking it down, you want to know everything. What was the name of Iblis? And how was this? And kada and kada. So oftentimes, it's going to be based off of the reader. So if you want those tafasil, ad-daqiqa, and if you want those riwayat to fill in the gaps of the inexplicit details mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah, ni'ma shayhiya is an excellent thing. But with the condition that you sift through them. Because there are certain things which are clearly batil. And there are other things which are clearly correct. And there are some things which are neither this or that. And you say, la bas. Hadithu an bani Isra'ila, wa la haraj. And oftentimes some of those Israeliyat, they don't have they don't change the meaning of anything. Musa told his people to slaughter the heifer. Bottom line, what color was the heifer? Was it yellow? Was it white? Was it red? What color was his hoofs together? None of that changes what? Anything. They were commanded to kill the heifer, and that's the bottom line. And they disobeyed and they rejected. But that's not the same for a connoisseur of tafsir, a connoisseur of history, or someone who's an average person, but he's interested in the facts. And he wants to know all of the different features and the details. So that's the faida of those riwayat Isra'iliyah, bishart, as long as they're not totally batil. And even if they're batil, for you to know about them. Mimma qila, wa ja'a, wa yudhkar. Well, you see what I'm saying to you? So it depends on a person. So a normal average reader, a beginning student of knowledge, no way. There's no need for them. It should be totally done away with, period. Talib al-ilm, a mutakhassis, a connoisseur, he can't just read a basic simple tafsir. I want to read what Tabari said in his tarikh. I want to know what the Jews said about the color of the cow and keda, because I'm interested in this field. هذا هو. هذا الضابط, ها? هذا هو الضابط. والله أعلم. تفضل أخي.
As far as I understand, a scholar is someone who the scholars say he's a scholar, but is that same concept applied for student of knowledge? So what defines a student of knowledge, and also what does he have to do? Like, are there certain things he has to study for him to reach that level, and then do scholars have to call him that, or how can we come about calling him?
Clear. طيب. With regards to what makes a scholar, is it only based off of what the scholars say, etc.? And what makes a student of knowledge a student of knowledge? Is it the same principle, or is it something else? As far as what defines a scholar, then that's an issue which is long and lengthy. What defines a scholar? And that's not really your actual question. As if you have some clarity with regards to that. He's saying what I've heard. That's fine. But what makes a student of knowledge a student of knowledge? Is it the same principle or not? No, it's not. It's not. And that's because a person could be hardworking, smart, dedicated, devoted, and he's known by no scholars. A student of knowledge could be someone that's locked up in solitary confinement. He reads and he studies. He's memorizing. He's practicing more than someone who's walking and talking out on the streets. And no scholars necessarily what? Know him. Or he may have only had one teacher. I went to Mauritania. I studied it for 10 years. I have one old sheikh that sat in the corner of a masjid. He didn't sit in no chair. He didn't have no mishlah on, no fancy thobe. He had no money from the government. But he was a master of fara'id, a master of lugha al-arabiya. He memorized thousands and thousands of lines of poetry, and that was my teacher in Mauritania. And he was a very humble, low-key type of guy. I left Mauritania. I came back to the UK. No one knows of my sheikh, nor does he want to be known. Does that mean I'm not a student of knowledge? Of course not. And vice versa. There may be someone who's in Saudi Arabia who knows Sheikh Fulan, who visited Sheikh Fulan. Sheikh Fulan knows him, Kether, and he's a lazy, poor, weak, half imposter student of knowledge. Scholars are human beings as well. All relationships between a scholar and a student of knowledge doesn't mean it's because of ilm and knowledge. Everyone understand this? You can have a business deal with a scholar. A scholar could like you because of your country or whatever the case may be. Just because a scholar mentions you means what? Nothing. I'm sure you have plenty of examples of this right here in Birmingham. Of someone who never studied. Someone who never formally sat down. Someone who never, drunk from the cup of humility. As the poet said, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَذُقْ ذُلَّ التَّعَلُّمِ سَاعَةً تَجَرَّعَ مِنْ كَأْسِ الْجَهْلِ إيش طُولَ حَيَاتِهِ. The poet, he says, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَذُقْ ذُلَّ التَّعَلُّمِ, he who doesn't taste the bitterness of studying for 1 hour will drink from the cup of ignorance the remainder of his life. He doesn't know the pains of being a talib al-ilm, but Sheikh Fulan mentioned him. Take from him, learn from him, study from him in the West. Billahi alayki ya Sheikh, hafidhak Allah, may Allah bless you. ما يؤهله لهذه المكانة والمنزل في الغرب. What qualifies him to be the deputy of the ulama in the West? What? He memorized the Quran, Bukhari. He graduated. Bilal, what does he have? So that means nothing. Let alone of the pop culture that we have today, in which we have a servant-master relationship. Servant-master relationship. Abu Isa, I'm going to make you famous in Philly. I'm going to make you famous, a household name. And the only thing I need from you is to endorse me. And I will endorse you. I scratch my back, you scratch yours. You make me famous here, I'll make you famous there. I'll give you what you never could achieve here, I'll give it to you there. It doesn't mean that I'm a good person or he's a bad person or anything, but we have mutual benefits. So a student of knowledge could be mentioned by scholars, who's an actual student of knowledge, labas. And there could be someone who's mentioned by a scholar or scholars who is not a talib al-ilm. هذا لا يقدم شيئا ولا يؤخر. That means nothing. The only thing which is important is the content of the person. Is he actually a talib al-ilm? And most importantly, as we've said in many classes and lectures before, is that being a student of knowledge has nothing to do with clothes. It has nothing to do with what type of pen you wear, what type of hat you have on, or what type of tea you drink. Being a student of knowledge is about your mentality, how you look at life. I want to study. I want to learn. I don't want to follow people. I don't want to be a tag-along. I want to know the truth myself with this proof and with this evidence. I want to memorize and know the text myself, by myself, for myself. That is a student of knowledge who's wearing pants and a shirt, who's wearing a shalwar kameez, who wears an izar, who wears blue, red, green, studied in Mauritania, Saudi, Timbuktu. Doesn't matter. That's a true what? Student of knowledge, and not a cliquish cult type of culture of Sheikh Fulan mentioned me, so therefore I'm a student of knowledge. Brother Fulan knows me, so therefore I'm a what? Student of knowledge. Oh, so we have to be mindful of wishing to be seen by men. Yura'una nas. People who wish to be seen by men and recognized by men. And I can tell you from personal experience, the masjid, the sheikh's house, the dars, wherever you are, oftentimes it's a social meeting place. It's like a club in which people want to be seen and recognized, a publicity stunt. So you have to be mindful of that. So student of knowledge is in the heart and it's in the mind. If you're a real student of knowledge and the scholars mention you, then of course that's better, of course, taban. And the other tulab al-ilm in the area, they know you as well. Fulan benefited, take from him, then that's also what? It's a good thing. But that is not the condition. And the same applies to being an actual scholar. You could be a scholar and the people may not know you. The people in a country don't know you, and that's another problem. What's meant by a scholar or scholars? And there's no disrespect to anyone. It's no disrespect what? To anyone, but it's the truth. Wallahu a'lam.
So what do I do to become a real student of knowledge then? How do I know when I'm a real student of knowledge?
First and foremost is to empty your cup. Get rid of what you think. Burn the books that you have. Meaning the information that you think you achieved, get rid of it. Start fresh. Go to someone who's a teacher, whether they're a student of knowledge or an actual scholar, sit with them, say, teach me. Show me what to do. I will be your servant. Tell me what to do. That's what I want to do. I won't talk back to you. I won't question you. I won't become sarcastic with you. I'm your student. Teach me. And then do what they tell you to do.
Is there like a specific level now that now becomes student of knowledge basically?
You're student knowledge from day one. You're a student of knowledge from day one. As long as you have that mental state, you're a talibul ilm. But of course, students of knowledge are of different levels. You can study for 20 years. You can study for 20 days. You're both what? Students of knowledge.
That makes sense.
فضل أخي.
حبيبي you just mentioned a very good hadith yesterday من لم يأخذ شاربه فليس منا the one that does not take or does not do من رغب عن سنتي فليس منا
عليه الصلاة والسلام.
the one that does not do a certain thing is not from us. How is that to be understood? Does that mean minor كفر أكبر?
فهمت. واضح. طيب حديث of زيد بن أرقم in جامع الترمذي للسنن of النسائي بسند صحيح أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من لم يأخذ من شاربه فليس منا. The one who doesn't trim his mustache is not from us. He who doesn't trim his mustache isn't from us. What's meant by that? In light of the hadith of Anas in the Sahihain, من رغب عن سنتي فليس مني. He who doesn't want my sunnah or who dispenses from my sunnah or with my sunnah is not from me. What's meant by that? Is it kufr? Is it shirk? Kufr akbar, so on and so forth. There are two madhabs of the ulama. هناك مذهبان لأهل العلم في هذين الحديثين وأمثالهما. المذهب الأول عدم التعرض لها. عدم الخوض في معناها. Don't explain it, don't interpret it. من تشبه بقوم فهو منهم. بدون شرح, بدون تفسير, بدون تأويل. Leave it as it is. Whoever imitates the people, he's from them. Whoever doesn't take from his mustache is not from us. من غشنا فليس منا. من حمل علينا السلاح فليس منا, etc. And they don't interpret it. And their مأخذهم في هذا المذهب, their rationale is that when you interpret it, it shaves down the meaning. Oh, it's not kufr akbar. It's not. So you've pushed the people away from the fear, being terrified and scared. Well, madhab al-thani, and the second madhab, is to interpret those hadiths in light of the other ahadith, in which if a person grows his mustache or shaves his beard, he's still a believer. He's still a mu'min. He's naqis. His iman is low, it's deficient, but he isn't a kafir, kufr and akbar. And that's the madhab which is the most popular one, but it's not the only one. So some ulama, they say, is that shaving the beard is haram, trimming the mustache is mandatory. And he who doesn't do it has made a sin, and he has fallen to something which removes him from closeness to the Prophet. Well, there. And obviously you see both madhabs, they have their what? Advantage and their what? The disadvantage. So oftentimes, interpretation isn't needed. Leave it as it is. Mention in the khutbah. مَنْ لَمْ يَأْخُذْ مِنْ شَارِبِهِ فَلَيْسَ مِنَّا. If you don't trim your mustache, you're not from the Muslims. You hear that statement, you have a big, gigantic, furry mustache, you're going to do what? You're going to trim it, inshallah. But perhaps if you hear, yani, you know, you're still a Muslim, Islam, kada, Iman is kada, Islam is peace, yani. Oh, okay, big deal. Just like I have other sins that I'm making and I'm still a Muslim, let me keep what? Growing my mustache. So both madhabs have their what? Have their advantage, and obviously the fa'idah is going to be on if someone has done it and they need to know now and not the future. I used to trim my mustache. Doesn't mean I was a kafir. I mean, I used to grow it. I used to imitate kuffar. Doesn't mean I was a kafir. He's done it already. Say no, la bas, ma'alik. That's not the same as a future warning. I live in a place, people have big mustaches, and I quote the hadith. من لم يأخذ من شاربه فليس منا. بس. That's it. يكفي. والله أعلم. Allah musta'an. There'll be many people who will be upon what? If you say that's kufr akbar, many guys wouldn't be Muslims. Allah musta'an. But we don't want to be from the takfiris. Abu Sa'id, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we make what? There's no takfir ever. Sahih? No? That's the madhab, right? Allah al-musta'an. Ila Allah al-mushtaka. To Allah we what? Complain. Fadhi akhi.
Just two quick questions. What's your opinion regarding the various Islamic mortgages, whether the part by part rent scheme, in which you buy part of the house, pay rent on the remainder to the bank, or the company that then you slowly put money every month in order to buy more equity. Is that halal? And the other question is the opinion on a girl traveling to work or to university without a mahram in a different city.
In a what?
In a different city.
In a different city.
So,
Tayyib.
for example, like London.
Clear. As far as the first question with regards to the different Islamic financial schemes of mortgage, of buying, of renting to buy, etc. And a woman traveling to uni without a mahram. She goes from one city to the next, one state, one township, etc. to the next, by herself without a mahram. As far as the first question, then obviously a great deal of time is needed to really tackle those issues. And you actually have to sit down and look at them, at the whole entire contract and the entire scheme. The general answer here is that mortgage and Islamic mortgage sometimes is clearly haram. And it's no different than the normal type of mortgages or interest-based interactions of buying a house. Sometimes the Muslim or Islamic bank is even worse because it's even more vague and more cloudy or cloudier. And oftentimes the word mortgage or finance of a car or a house isn't haram and it's permissible, depending on what's meant by that. It's a higher price with installments. You're actually paying interest on the house monthly, yearly, etc. It depends on the actual what? Agreement. So there are, we were discussing this, we were coming from what? From the airport. Taqseet and things like this. Yeah, installments. Just because a product is higher, a house is higher with installments, doesn't necessarily mean it's haram. But it depends on the details of the what? Of the contract. The actual scheme, what's actually being said. Buying, renting, partially, etc. It has to depend. Some of those things are clearly permissible. And it's a way out, walillahi alhamd, a hila shar'iyya from the riba or things which are other than riba, such as buying something from someone who doesn't own it. That's also prohibited in the Sharia. And many people, of course, riba is a tremendous sin. فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. It's a tremendous sin. However, that's not the only problem with banks today. There are other mukhalafat. There are other problems, and from those problems is the bank or the realtor or whoever selling something or renting something that they what? Don't own. There are many other problems as well, okay? So it has to be tafsir. If you want the details, from my humble knowledge, you have to email me the specifics. As far as the brothers, the mashayikh and the tulab al-ilm who have wrote about these things, there are many websites. There are many websites you can find in English that deal with the concept of finance and mortgage and renting and leasing and buying in detail. And my humble opinion, there are many, many decent sites out there in which you can read about it. And even if the site isn't perfect, or it's not from Sheikh Fulan or this one or that one, but no doubt you're going to increase in knowledge. And it's going to be better than you being totally blind and in the dark. Clear on that? As far as a girl traveling from one city or town to the next without a mahram to the university, then the Prophet ﷺ has forbidden a woman from traveling without a mahram. So anything which is considered to be safar, it is prohibited. Whether it's one town to the next, school, work, her father's in the hospital, whatever is considered safar, it is included in that hadith. As far as a woman being on the bus or the train or the airplane, a woman is driving, she has a car, there are cameras, there are police, so on and so forth. Is the tariq amin? Is it a safe road? Some of the ulama of Islam, they give details with regards to that. Or a woman traveling in a company of sisters. 3 sisters traveling by themselves, some of them say it's permissible, even if it's not a mahram among them. 5 of them is permissible, even if it's not a mahram among them. And others, they say it's permissible for her to travel by herself without a mahram as long as it is safe outside. And then others, they take the original default orthodox view off of those hadith is that it is prohibited. Cameras, airplanes, cars, locked doors, self-defense, she cannot travel without a mahram. Her danger, her safety is only one of the wisdoms behind it being prohibited. So it should be avoided if it's not a necessity. If it's a necessity and a hardship, perhaps that's a different story.
She's almost finished her university degree. She's got about a year and a half left. What would you say with regards to that? And she always makes the excuse that I got something to fall back on just in case I do get divorced or something does happen down the line.
Clear.
Fall back on.
Well, maybe that's a necessity to her. Maybe that's what she feels is a necessity. High rate of divorce. Unfortunately, many of us brothers not taking care of our wives. not taking care of women, marrying them, divorcing them, leaving them irresponsibly. These are many problems that we have created as men. We have created those problems, unfortunately. Talaq is in the hands of the men, and oftentimes the men have recklessly used the talaq. Recklessly used it. And threatened a woman with talaq, unfortunately. Recklessly used it. And oftentimes it causes women to have this attitude. We spoke about this in California, about feminism. How feminism is nothing more than a product of what? Dhulm of men. And they went to the other extreme. So, Allahul Musta'an. Fadl ya akhi.
Can I ask two questions?
Fadl.
So the first one, what's the ruling on listening, to on watching videos of some mashayikh who have loads of knowledge when it comes to fiqh, but when it comes to their manhaj, it's a bit dodgy. Secondly, what about the place of the sorry.
Fadl ya akhi. A bit dodgy, huh?
No,
You gotta love Birmingham.
sorry.
Fadl.
He's from Switzerland.
La.
He's now in Birmingham.
Sure.
I've been influenced by Birmingham.
هذا هو. That's right. The DNA doesn't matter where he's from, Switzerland or not, huh? Fadl.
And secondly, what should be the place of the study of the Arabic language in someone who wants to study the deen? Should the Arabic language be his priority until he understands completely, the books in Arabic? Should he?
Fadl. Okay. Basically learning fiqh from a deviant. That's what you want to say.
Some videos of fiqh, just watching.
بعبارتنا مختصرة in the Birmingham lingo. Can I study fiqh with a what? A person of desires and innovation. Right, Sen? That's what you want to say. Sahih?
Yeah.
طيب. سهلة يا شيخ. هذا المقصود يعني. طيب بلسان القوم ها. طيب, studying fiqh with someone who has problems or his minhaj is a bit dodgy. Just a what? Just a bit dodgy, huh? Right? طيب. المهم, طيب, where were we the other day? We were talking about this. We were in Reading. And subhanallah, this is a true story. Abu Isa, wallah al-azim. A brother came up to me. He said, Assalamu alaikum. I'm brother such and such. Nice to meet you. I watch your videos. I've benefited from HadithDisciple. And he says, I personally apologize to you. Wallahi al-azim. He said, I used to be with Kada Dawah group in Kada city. And I was talking about you. Then I started benefiting from you. And I'm apologizing to you to your face. Now I have a question. That's what he asked next. Wallahi. So he says, I learned from Hanafi scholars. Some of them are Deobandis. Some of them have effects of Deobandism, kada, but they're strong in fiqh. And I like the Hanafi madhab. I like the way that they think and they deduce and they argue to defend the views, etc. Can I benefit from them? So I told him this. I asked him, do you have children? He said, no. I said, you have no children? He said, no. I said, if you had children, then you would know the answer to the question. You would know the answer, who you can and cannot take from, how and when you can take from someone who's a bit dodgy or not. And that is a child. How is a child fed? How does a child eat? When a child comes out of the womb, what does the child request? What does the child demand? The child is fed by how? Breast milk. Then it goes from breast milk to what? Baby food. From baby food to what? Table food. From table food to developing his or her own palate and specific tastes. Until a grown man is picky and finicky. I like this, I don't like that, so on and so forth. So would you feed a baby solid food? No. Would you feed a 7-year-old breast milk? No. If you gave a child some smashed up fish and allowed them to play and just eat it and make a mess, you wouldn't give them a whole fish, and which is the head, the tail, the eyes, the bones, the skin, the prickly things. They can choke, they can poke themselves, they can become seriously injured. But an 8-year-old kid or 7-year-old kid who's taught knows how to separate the bones, take the meat, and discard the rest. هكذا العلم. Some people do not need and cannot study with someone who's a bit dodgy. They need someone who's just right to the point, Salim, clear cut. And there are others who have enough skill, enough knowledge, enough common sense to understand, in this area, he's a bit shaky or dodgy, or it's not even his field of expertise. I've come here to study fara'id and nothing more. I come to this Sufi sheikh, hypothetically speaking, or Takfiri, Sururi, Hizb Tahrir, whatever name, exotic name you have in Birmingham for this one and for that one, right? I'm not here to speak about politics. I'm not here to talk about is Allah above the throne or not. I'm here to learn about a sudus, a thuman, a nus, a ruba, wahakada, inheritance. And this is the best person to learn inheritance from. And he himself, a very important dhabit muhim jiddan. This teacher is a professional. Listen carefully. He's a professional. And he does not try to convert people to his methodology or his manhaj or his dawah view. You come to study inheritance, I shall teach you inheritance. You're this, I'm a that. We don't have to fight. We don't have to argue. If you sit on a carpet, you are my student. Don't question me. Don't debate with me. We're not going to get into takfir and khuruj al-hakim. It has nothing to do with what? Nusf, rubu', a thuman, an eighth, a fourth, a half, a sixth. We're talking about inheritance and only what? Inheritance. Clear? As far as the beginner, different story.
Okay.
Someone who doesn't need farad, different what? Story. A teacher who isn't a professional is a what? Different story. He's mixing his batil and his bid'ah in with his inheritance. And obviously someone is going to say, well, how do you know he's not mixing it? How do you know kada? How do you know kada? Because you know. What does al-farad have to do with al-istiwa al-arsh? Arabic language, different story. That's what? A different story. But even that's totally hypothetical, Ihsan. Doesn't exist. And that's because you're not going to study with Zamakhshari. If you need to study the Nahu and the Balagh of Zamakhshari, then you aren't a what? You aren't a what? You're not a student. You're not a what? You're not a student. Everyone understand this? So oftentimes people, they live in a hypothetical fantasy world. If you're studying this high level of lugha, which this person is using the lugha to make ta'weed of the sifat, so on and so forth, you shouldn't be a what? You're not supposed to be studying Arabic. Everyone understand this? So it's a difference between, is the sheikh a professional? There's a difference between, are you a beginner? There's a difference between, is there someone else who can teach you inheritance and not him? And also there's a difference between the level of the dodginess of his manhaj. And obviously the word dodgy is relative. The word manhaj is relative, and oftentimes it is abused. What's someone's manhaj? What do you mean by manhaj? Manhaj fi kada. Manhaj ahl sunnah fi kada. Manhaj ahl sunnah fi talaqi. Manhaj ahl sunnah fi tarbiyah. What's the word manhaj? What's the broad word manhaj? Manhaj of dawah? Manhaj of dealing with rulers? Manhaj of fixing mistakes? Manhaj of propagating? So the people oftentimes, they don't understand the word manhaj. They use it incorrectly and they abuse it. And what do you mean by dodgy? I differ with your sheikh, so now I'm dodgy. I don't kiss your feet and lick your toes, so now I'm dodgy. It's a reality. It's a haqiqa, yani malish. You are jahil. Where have you studied, yaqi? What have you learned? I lived in Yemen. I lived in Egypt. I lived in this country for 15 years. I studied, I graduated. I have to come back to the UK and bow down and kiss your feet, and you can barely speak Arabic. So that makes me what? Dodgy, or a bit dodgy. It's la'ab, yaqi. And it's ultimate disrespect to knowledge. For a jahil to be the one who dictates and determines what an actual student of knowledge says and does is ultimate disrespect to knowledge. And it's not a joke, and it's not a simple thing. And I'm not talking about one person specifically, but the shoe fits, فَالْبَسْهَا. Put on the na'al if it fits your foot. You have not studied properly. What gives you the right to determine this person who has a degree in Sharia? What masjid he shouldn't be going to? The brother's experience. Experience off of what? Knowledge or jahal? So this is, yani, I'm sorry, this is not correct. This is wrong. And there's tafsil. And the one who says that you can't take nothing from no one because of this mistake, that's not absolutely true.
Okay.
And the one who says that you can take from anyone with this mistake, that's not also not what? It's just tafsil. The talib, the sheikh, the science being studied, and the what? And the level. Are we understand this?
Perfect.
Last but not least, the ignoramus hates tafsil. Take the golden principle. Ignorant people, they don't like details because details require intelligence and it requires thinking. The more thinking you do, the more critical you become. And if you keep thinking and studying critically, maybe you'll say to yourself, what makes me obliged to come and study with you? I know more than you do. And obviously you can't have that. You understand what I'm saying to you?
It was a good thing to mention with the Hanafi madhab, because I was thinking about someone who wants to really study the Hanafi madhab so he can give that one more easily in Pakistan, and he can only find some Ash'ari / Deobandis.
Whatever be Maturidi, right?
Of
If they're
course,
Hanafi,
yeah, it's about Maturidi, yeah.
Ash'ari is Shafi'i, right?
Malik
In most
as well,
cases. Huh? Al-Muhim, at the end of the day, the bottom line is that there's tafsir.
Yeah.
There has to be tafsir. There has to be a detail. It's not always black and white, and it depends on who the person is and what
Exactly.
the science is.
He has already studied a little bit.
هذا هو. خير inshallah. I believe we have to go. Fadal, Malish.
Just two quick questions.
This will be our last two, because we definitely have to what? As we say, we got a boogie. Huh? It's time to bounce.
Yeah.
Fadal.
In one of the lectures of Abu Usama, he mentioned something about Sufyan al-Thawri being إنما الأعمال بالنية. So I think he said that it's 1/3 of the whole deen, equivalent to it as well.
Okay.
If you could just mention how important that is, and what
Clear.
you can extract from it as from a layman.
With regards to the hadith, إنما الأعمال بالنيات, being thuluth ad-din, a third of the religion, or nusf ad-din, a half of the religion, was mentioned by Abu Usama in the lecture, so on and so forth. I don't know what Abu Usama meant. He said those words. You definitely have to ask him specifically.
You mentioned that Sufyan
No,
al-Thawri-
I understood what you said. I understood your words are clear. What he specifically meant, that can only be taken from what? Abu Usama. But in general, the kalam of the ulama regarding this, that this hadith is a half of the religion or a third of the religion, meaning is that the religion is going to be inward and outward. What do you intend by this act of prayer? That's none of your business. That's between me and Allah. I'm praying for Allah, I'm not praying for you. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. But you made the prayer incorrectly. You made the prayer in a wrong way. You made the prayer at an incorrect time. I say that that's bid'ah. And that is the hadith, مَنْ عَمِلَ عَمَلًا لَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ أَمْرُنَا فَهُوَ رَدٌّ. So that's the other half of the deen. The deen is inward and outward. So these are based off of intention. Sincerity, that automatically is half of the what? Deen. And the outward sense is the other half of the deen. Or the concept of the 10 commandments, the 10 golden rules, the main pillars of the religion are included in these hadiths. أن halal bayin wa inna haram bayin. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. إن خلق أحدكم وهكذا. The main parts of the religion are included in these 3 hadiths, or these 5 hadiths. And what the scholars meant by this statement is in most cases, but there are many hadiths upon which the religion stands. But they're talking about the principles, the main fundaments of the religion go back to those 3 or those 5 hadiths, which are so profound and so broad. The religion is based off of this. The religion ad-din nasiha. That's included between you and Allah, you and yourself, and you with the slaves of Allah. That includes everything. You understand? So that's what the ulama of Islam meant when they made these type of statements. Okay? As far as what Sheikh Abu Usama meant or this and that, Allahu A'lam. You have to go back and ask him, inshallah.